You have misunderstood the law of attraction up until now, because no one told you that the real power lies not in wanting, but in observing. Reality takes shape according to your awareness, not your thoughts. And without knowing this, you continue to live in the same cycle. Most people are still trying to send messages to the universe, but the universe is already observing what you're paying attention to. That's why the observer effect is actually the law of attraction itself. It responds to you not based on who you think you are, but on how you look at things. This video will show you why you can't seem to experience the life you imagine and how you can attract it now through your observation. Be ready to understand how reality arises from you, because once this awareness opens, everything changes. For most of your life, you've been told that in order to attract something, you have to want it badly enough. Visualize it, say the affirmations, think positive thoughts, feel the emotions, want it so deeply that the universe has no choice but to deliver. But what if I told you that all of this, the wanting, the visualizing, the scripting, is only scratching the surface? Because the truth is, the universe doesn't respond to what you want, it responds to who you are while you're wanting. This is where the observer effect comes in, not as a scientific anomaly, but as the very foundation of how reality organizes itself around you. When you observe reality from a place of lack, even if you add positive thoughts on top, you're still broadcasting a frequency of "I don't have it." And so, that's exactly what gets reinforced. The quantum field, this invisible web of potential, doesn't judge your words or your intentions. It reads your energetic stance. And energy is shaped by perception, not just intention. Think of it this way. Two people can visualize the same dream life. They can say the same affirmations, meditate the same amount, and even want it equally, but only one of them actually steps into that reality. Why? Because only one of them is observing from a place of alignment, from a place where the dream already feels real inside. This is the silent force behind the observer effect. It teaches us that reality doesn't just exist independently out there, waiting to be experienced. It is shaped, chosen, and molded by the quality of our observation. And what defines the quality of our observation? Presence, embodiment, identity. Most people observe their current reality as fixed. They see lack, limitation, and separation, and by doing so, they stabilize it further. The longer you look at what you don't want with certainty, the longer it stays. On the other hand, those who live in a new reality before it arrives aren't delusional, they're attuned. They've learned that if you want to manifest something different, you have to observe from that difference. You can't become wealthy by observing poverty. You can't become free by fixating on what keeps you stuck. This is why people often say, "I did all the techniques but nothing changed," because techniques don't override perception, and your perception is wired into your identity. The observer effect is not about thinking harder, it's about seeing deeper. Nothing is real until it is observed, and how you observe determines what becomes real. At the quantum level, you're not just a passive participant, you're the co-creator. Your gaze collapses infinite probabilities into one outcome. That outcome mirrors not what you want, but how you see. That's the hidden truth behind manifestation. You don't attract what you wish for. You attract what you believe you are already in relationship with. And relationship is cultivated through attention, presence, and frequency. When you shift from "I want that life" to "I observe that life as mine," you stop reaching, you start receiving, and everything begins to align, because wanting is filled with distance. But observing from wholeness creates resonance, and resonance always finds its match. If your observation creates reality, then what exactly powers your observation? It's not just your eyes. It's not your thoughts alone. It's something more subtle, something that vibrates underneath every moment you're alive. It's frequency. Every time you focus on something, you're tuning yourself to a specific energetic station. Just like a radio, your perception is dialing into a broadcast, and that broadcast is what you begin to experience as your reality. Not because the thing suddenly appears, but because you're now aligned with the version of you that sees it, feels it, and allows it. This is why two people can walk into the same room and have entirely different experiences. One sees opportunities, the other sees threats. One feels inspired, the other feels anxious. The room didn't change, their frequency did. And where does frequency come from? It's not random. It comes from attention plus emotion plus identity. Let's break that down. When you focus on something with repeated attention, you start to give it emotional charge. It becomes alive within your awareness, and the more emotionally involved you become with that thing, the more it begins to define how you see yourself. Soon, it's not just "I want abundance." It's "I only feel safe when abundance shows up." That vibration, lack. Now compare that with this: "I feel whole even before anything arrives." That vibration, alignment. See, your frequency is never about what you're thinking. It's about who you're being while you think. Most people try to change their lives by focusing on results. More money, better health, new love. But they're still tuned into the old self who doesn't believe those things are here yet. So the broadcast stays the same, no matter how many affirmations they write, or how many vision boards they hang on their wall. But something radical happens when you stop chasing and start attuning. When you learn to match the frequency of the version of you who already has what you're seeking, you become a magnet for experiences that mirror that inner stance. Not as a trick, not as a mental game, but as a natural consequence of vibrational resonance. Here's where the observer effect becomes more than just quantum physics. It becomes personal, because the observer doesn't just determine what shows up in the lab, it determines what shows up in your life. And when your observation is charged with clarity, gratitude, trust, and presence, reality begins to bend. You begin to witness synchronicities. You meet the right person at the exact moment you stop obsessing. The opportunity comes just after you let go. The door opens when you no longer feel desperate to knock. Why? Because desperation has a frequency. So does confidence. So does peace. So does wholeness. And every reality you could ever imagine already exists at a specific frequency, waiting for you to meet it halfway. That halfway point is not somewhere outside of you. It's inside the way you look at life. This is why subtle shifts in focus can lead to massive shifts in reality. Not because the world suddenly changes, but because your tuning does. You've left the old station and found a new one, and the signal is clear. You're not here to wish things into existence. You're here to tune yourself into alignment with what's already true. The truth is, your dream life doesn't arrive because you chase it. It arrives because you become equal to it. And that becoming starts with the frequency behind your focus. You've probably heard it 1,000 times. If you want something, work for it. And while that advice makes sense in the physical world, in the quantum realm, in the space where energy precedes form, the rules are completely different. Here, effort is not the primary currency. Embodiment is. You can't force quantum alignment. You can't hustle your way into the frequency of your dream life, because the quantum field doesn't respond to your effort. It responds to your energetic state. And your state is not created by doing. It's created by being. Embodiment means that you are no longer trying to get the thing. You've become the version of yourself who already lives in the reality where that thing exists. There is no convincing, no performing, no negotiating with the universe. You are it, now. And that shifts everything. Think about how most people approach change. They think, I want to feel free, so I need more money. I want to feel loved, so I need a relationship. I want to feel secure, so I need external stability. But the quantum field doesn't work like a vending machine. You don't insert hard work and receive an outcome. You radiate a state, and reality responds accordingly. You're not manifesting a thing, you're manifesting a match. This is why two people can put in the same amount of effort, take the same actions, say the same affirmations, visualize with the same frequency, and still get completely different results. Because it's not about the action, it's about the state of being behind the action. Here's what that means in real life. If you take aligned action from a place of peace, trust, and knowing, you're magnetized. But if you take that same action from a place of fear, doubt, and urgency, you're repelling. Not because the universe is punishing you, but because your frequency is closing the door before it can even open. Let's go deeper. Embodiment is when your thoughts, feelings, and body are all telling the same story. The story of already enough, already worthy, already home. You walk differently. You speak differently. You make decisions not from lack, but from alignment. And that sends a clear signal to the field. This is who I am now. The field doesn't argue. It mirrors, but embodiment requires surrender. It requires letting go of who you think you are and stepping into who you truly are, even if there's no proof yet. Especially when there's no proof yet. That's the leap. Most people wait for the external world to give them permission to change. They think, when I get the thing, then I'll feel safe. But in this quantum playground, it's the other way around. You feel safe first, and then the thing arrives. Because the field responds to coherence. When your internal world is coherent, when your mind, body, and heart are in agreement, the external world can't help but reflect it. But when you want one thing, fear another, and believe you're unworthy of both, the signal gets scrambled, and nothing changes. So the real work is not in trying harder. It's in aligning deeper. It's in asking, what would it feel like to already have what I want? How would I move? How would I breathe? What would I stop doing? And then, do that. Be that. Not to trick the universe, but because that version of you already exists, and you're simply remembering how to be them. This is embodiment. It's not glamorous. It's not always comfortable, but it's the bridge between the world you know and the one that's waiting for you. The truth is, your dream life isn't something you reach. It's a frequency you return to. And once you become it, consistently, honestly, completely, reality has no choice but to follow. By now, you've probably begun to sense the pattern. Reality doesn't act on its own. It reflects. It listens. It mirrors back to you not what you ask for, but who you are while asking. This is one of the most misunderstood truths in personal transformation, and one of the most liberating once it's fully grasped, because when you see reality as a mirror, everything changes. It means every experience, every situation, every person you encounter is showing you something about the frequency you're currently embodying. That can be uncomfortable, especially if what's being reflected isn't what you think you want. But it's also empowering, because mirrors don't lie, they just show. And when you understand the message, you can change the reflection. Think about it. A mirror doesn't give you what you demand, it gives you what you are. So if you're looking into the mirror of life and seeing scarcity, lack, rejection, or struggle, those aren't punishments. They're signals, indicators, echoes of what's going on beneath the surface of your thoughts, in your beliefs, emotions, expectations, and identity. You don't change the mirror by yelling at it. You change the mirror by adjusting your presence in front of it. This is where most people get stuck. They see something they don't like, a job they hate, a relationship that feels unfulfilling, a body that doesn't match their ideal, and they go to war with the reflection. They try to fix, force, or fight their circumstances, but they're still carrying the same frequency that created them, and so the mirror keeps showing the same thing, just wearing a different mask. The only way to change what's showing up out there is to first shift what's vibrating in here. Here's a simple but radical truth. Nothing outside of you can sustain what you haven't accepted within you. You can attract success, but if you still believe you're unworthy, you'll sabotage it. You can find love, but if you don't feel safe being seen, you'll unconsciously push it away. You can manifest opportunities, but if your nervous system is trained to expect disappointment, you'll miss them. Why? Because your inner reality acts as a filter for your outer perception. This is what the observer effect points to again and again. The act of observing is not neutral. It is creative. It is participatory. You are not watching the world. You are shaping it through how you look at it. And when you shift your internal story, not just in words but in emotion, embodiment, and belief, the mirror has no choice but to comply. This is not magic. This is coherence. The field is neutral. It doesn't favor struggle or ease. It simply amplifies. And your dominant state, not your fleeting thoughts, but your sustained frequency, is what gets magnified into form. So the question becomes, what are you broadcasting when no one's watching? What emotions do you rehearse when things are quiet? What truths do you believe about yourself when there's no audience? Because that is what gets reflected. And the best part, you can shift the signal at any time, not by pretending, not by pushing, but by gently, honestly, and repeatedly choosing a new state, even if your mind says it's not true yet, even if your eyes don't see the evidence, even if you're afraid to believe again. Start anyway. Step into the version of you who already sees a different reflection, and hold that stance even as the mirror catches up. Because when the reflection finally changes, you'll realize it was never about chasing. It was about remembering who you were all along. There's a widely held belief in the manifestation world that you have to attract what you want, that it's somewhere out there floating in some other dimension, and with enough focus, enough vision boards, enough mantras, you'll finally pull it in. But that's a misunderstanding, because in the quantum world, you don't attract anything in the way most people imagine. You align with what's already present in the field of infinite potential. You tune yourself to a version of reality that already exists, and then you become a vibrational match to it. Let's be clear, you are not pulling something into existence from a distance. You are shifting your state to meet what's already been waiting. This means that reality is not something to chase. It's something to synchronize with. Think of the universe like a symphony, playing infinite songs at once. You can't hear all of them. You only hear the one your inner frequency is attuned to. If your body is tense, your thoughts are doubtful, and your emotions are rooted in fear, then no matter how beautiful the song of abundance is, you won't hear it. Not because it's not playing, but because you're not tuned in. This changes the game, because suddenly, the path to your dream life is not about effort. It's about energetic congruence. It's not about doing more. It's about becoming still enough, clear enough, open enough to feel the signal that's already here. And once you're aligned, life begins to meet you in the most unexpected ways. Doors open, ideas flow, people show up, not because you forced it, but because you matched it. You aligned. But alignment isn't a one-time decision. It's a moment-to-moment practice. It means constantly checking in. Am I thinking from lack or from fullness? Am I speaking from fear or from trust? Am I choosing this because I believe in it or because I'm scared not to? Most people don't ask those questions. They keep taking action, hoping to overpower their inner misalignment without a force. But the field doesn't respond to force. It responds to frequency. And your frequency is set by the story you're telling yourself, especially when things are quiet. This is why slowing down is one of the most powerful alignment practices. In silence, you meet your true vibration, and in awareness, you begin to shift it. When you pause long enough to feel the gap between who you're being and what you say you want, you gain the power to close it, not with effort, but with presence. And here's the most liberating truth. You don't have to be perfect to be aligned. You just have to be honest. Honesty creates coherence. Coherence creates clarity. And clarity aligns you with the reality you were always meant to live. You don't need to attract what's already yours. You need to remember it, resonate with it, and allow it. That's alignment. And that's how quantum manifestation truly works. Not by dragging your dreams toward you, but by dissolving the version of you who thought they were far away. The future you desire doesn't live in the distance. It lives in the frequency of who you are becoming now. So stop reaching, start receiving. And remember, you're not attracting it. You're aligning with it, breath by breath, belief by belief, moment by moment. We live in a world obsessed with evidence. We're taught from a young age to believe only what we can see, measure, and verify. Seeing is believing is the mantra of the material mind. But in the realm of quantum creation, that formula is backwards. Here, believing is what leads to seeing. This is the hardest part for the logical self to accept. It wants guarantees, timelines, proof. It wants to know that the effort will pay off before the leap is taken. But the quantum field doesn't respond to proof seeking. It responds to energy, and energy is moved by conviction, not conditions. Let's say you want to create a new reality, a life of freedom, creativity, or deep connection. But your external world is still showing you bills, resistance, uncertainty. If you look at that and say, I'll believe in the vision once things change, you're stabilizing your current timeline. You're telling the field, this is what I trust. And so it gives you more of the same. But when you dare to believe without proof, not blindly but deliberately, you begin to alter the script. You shift timelines. You soften resistance. You let the signal of the new reality imprint your nervous system before it ever touches your bank account, your relationship, or your body. That's the essence of quantum faith. Not hope, not wishful thinking, but embodiment before evidence. You might be wondering, how can I believe something I can't see yet? The answer is you already do this all the time. When you worry about the worst-case scenario, your body feels it. When you expect to be disappointed, you brace yourself. Your nervous system doesn't wait for external proof to react. It responds to belief. So belief isn't just mental, it's biological, it's emotional, it's energetic, which means you can train it, you can shift it. You can choose to believe in a reality, not because it's been proven, but because it's aligned with your highest knowing. This is not spiritual bypassing. This is spiritual responsibility. It's saying, I will no longer wait for the world to show me who I am. I will decide who I am, and let the world catch up. Because the mirror of reality reflects back what you hold steadily, not what you briefly entertain. If you believe only when things look good, your faith is conditional. But if you believe through contrast, through stillness, through discomfort, then your belief becomes creative. Here's the paradox. The moment you no longer need proof is the moment it starts to appear. Not because you gave up, but because you released resistance. You stepped out of force and into flow. You stopped waiting and started embodying. And in that space, where belief meets surrender, where energy meets identity, you begin to notice subtle shifts. A conversation that sparks something new, a gut feeling that leads to alignment, an old pattern that finally dissolves. And eventually, evidence arrives. Not because you forced it, but because your field became stable enough to hold it. Remember, proof is a byproduct of coherence. And coherence comes from clarity, choice, and consistency. You don't become powerful by waiting for things to get better. You become powerful by choosing to believe in what you know, even when you can't see it yet. The world will always offer reasons to doubt, but you don't need the world's permission to trust your vision. You just need the courage to align with it long enough for reality to remember how to mirror it back to you. We tend to believe that reality unfolds in a straight line, past, present, future. You wake up, do your tasks, go to sleep. One moment leads to the next. But what if this linear timeline isn't the truth of how creation actually works? What if the observer, the real you, exists beyond time? Quantum physics has already shaken our ideas of time. Particles can be entangled across distance and act as one. Future measurements can influence present outcomes. And at the subatomic level, time becomes less like a straight road and more like a sphere, one where everything is already happening, but your observation determines what becomes realized. This isn't just science, it's direct experience, if you know where to look. Have you ever had a moment where a sudden realization shifted your entire past, where a new insight changed the meaning of an old memory, or a random encounter altered your sense of what's possible tomorrow? That's not time moving, that's you moving across timelines. That's the observer stepping into a new vibration, and reality, including time, rearranging itself to match. You are not a passive passenger in time, you are the navigator. But to navigate time, you must stop being ruled by it. Because here's the illusion. We think the past defines us. We think the future is uncertain. We think now is just a small dot between what was and what might be. But that's only true if you believe the story. When you observe yourself from beyond time, from the seat of awareness instead of the tunnel of memory, you begin to reclaim authorship over your experience. And here's the radical idea. Your future self is not just a concept. It's already vibrating, already whole, already living the reality you think you're waiting for. And that future self is watching you too. When you close your eyes and imagine who you want to become, that's not just fantasy, it's resonance. A signal, a calling from the version of you who already exists outside of linear time, inviting you into alignment. This is why intuitive decisions feel effortless. They come from the part of you that isn't stuck in what was but is fully aligned with what already is. To create beyond time, you must feel beyond time. Not what do I want later, but what can I feel now as already true. That's not delusion, that's design, because the quantum field doesn't operate on clocks. It operates on coherence. When you collapse your sense of time into the present moment, not intellectually, but energetically, you open portals, you become timeless, and in that space manifestation accelerates. Why? Because resistance lives in time. It says I'm not there yet. It says maybe one day, but your soul doesn't speak in delays. It speaks in now. The moment you stop identifying with the clock version of yourself and start embodying the field version of yourself, the one who already is, already knows, already flows, reality stops waiting, it meets you, and suddenly, the right message shows up, the opportunity lands, the healing begins, not because time finally passed, but because the observer became eternal, even just for a breath. So here's the invitation. Stop waiting for your future to arrive. Start listening to it. Stop measuring change by how much time has gone by. Start measuring it by how much identity you've released. You're not here to pass through time. You're here to bend it, to harmonize with the self that exists in all directions and observe from there. Because when you observe from beyond time, the past begins to heal, the present becomes powerful, and the future starts arriving early. If a single thought can shift your perception, what happens when that thought is repeated? If one moment of alignment can alter the field, what does daily alignment do? This is where most people misunderstand the mechanics of quantum creation. They think the breakthrough happens in the big moments. The meditation that felt powerful, the journaling session that brought tears, the epiphany that shook something loose. But true change, lasting, stable, observable change, isn't built in the grand moments. It's built in what you do again and again and again. In the quantum field, repetition is resonance. And resonance is what stabilizes a timeline. Let's be clear, you are not punished for your patterns. You are shaped by them. Every time you revisit a thought, I'm not ready, it's too late, what if I fail? You reinforce a frequency, not because the universe is judging you, but because your nervous system is broadcasting certainty. And the field responds to certainty. That's why beliefs, even inaccurate ones, are so powerful. They're stable frequencies, and the more often you tune into them, the more your outer reality mirrors their music. So here's the question: what song are you playing on repeat? Most people want a new life, but keep rehearsing the old one. They wake up and revisit the same emotions. They tell the same stories. They anticipate the same outcomes, and then call it reality. But reality isn't fixed, it's familiar, and familiarity is a product of repetition. If you want to shift timelines, you have to shift the signals you send over and over again. That doesn't mean forcing positivity. It means choosing a new emotional baseline and practicing it until it becomes your home frequency. Because repetition doesn't just reinforce behavior, it reshapes identity. Who you believe yourself to be is not based on logic, it's based on memory. And memory is a story you've told yourself repeatedly until it became law. But you can write a new law, you can install a new rhythm, and you do that by showing up, moment by moment, with a different stance. Not trying to be positive, but embodying the version of you who lives in possibility, again and again until that version becomes automatic. This is why rituals are powerful, not because they control the universe, but because they train your energy to expect alignment. You become what you practice, not once, but consistently. Every moment you anchor a new frequency, even for 30 seconds, you're laying new tracks. And one day those tracks become the path, not because the world changed, but because your inner rhythm did. The quantum field isn't looking for perfection, it's looking for consistency, not in action, but in being. The field responds to your most repeated signal, and you are always broadcasting something. So if you want a new reality to lock in, practice it, live it, rehearse it, even when it feels unfamiliar. Because frequency repeated becomes fact, and fact repeated becomes form. Before a new reality can fully emerge, the signal of the old self must be released. This isn't about erasing who you've been. It's about no longer aligning with what no longer aligns with you. Because even when we say we want transformation, there's a part of us, subtle, familiar, stubborn, that still clings to the old frequency. Why? Because the old self is known, it's memorized, it's safe, not because it feels good, but because it feels certain. And the nervous system loves certainty. That's why change often feels like loss, not because we're losing who we truly are, but because we're shedding who we were conditioned to be. Think of every identity you've held. I'm the one who works hard but never quite succeeds. I'm the one who always gets left behind. I'm the overthinker, the fixer, the people pleaser. These aren't just thoughts, they're energetic signatures, frequencies you've rehearsed until they became second nature, and those frequencies are still echoing in your field. You might consciously desire a new timeline, wealth, freedom, purpose, but if the subconscious is still transmitting the old signal, you'll keep experiencing contradiction. This is why letting go is not passive. It's a conscious interruption of the old broadcast. It means pausing the story when it tries to play again. It means choosing silence instead of reaction, stillness instead of control, curiosity instead of shame. At first it feels like emptiness, like walking without direction, like becoming no one. But that emptiness is sacred. It's the void where the old dissolves and the new becomes possible. The challenge: the mind will fight for the familiar. It will whisper, "This isn't working." It will crave evidence. It will push you to prove yourself, because it was trained to earn its worth. But the new self doesn't operate from effort. It doesn't hustle to be seen. It radiates from clarity. It creates from rest. It responds. It doesn't chase. So how do you shed the signal? Not through resistance, not through self-punishment, but through presence. Every time you catch yourself falling back into the vibration of fear, doubt, or guilt, you pause, you breathe, you remember, that was a program, that was a layer, that was then, and you gently return to center. You repeat this not once, but daily, hourly, until your nervous system learns to trust stillness over chaos, until your energy stabilizes at a new frequency, until the old signal fades, not because you destroyed it, but because you stopped feeding it. This is spiritual unlearning. This is the death of the outdated self, and like any death, it comes with grief, not just for what was lost, but for how long you lived disconnected from what was true. Let yourself grieve. Let yourself soften. Let the old signal echo as it fades, like a song playing in another room you no longer enter. Because when you finally stop trying to carry who you were, you become light enough to embody who you're here to be. There's a quiet power that lives beyond technique, beyond thought, beyond wanting. It begins when you stop trying to attract your desired reality and start being the person who already lives it. This is the final shift, not because the work ends here, but because the effort does. When you live as if it's already true, you dissolve the very gap that was keeping it from you. You no longer wait for permission. You no longer outsource your power to signs, numbers, or validation. You become the cause, not the effect. But let's be honest, this isn't always easy, because the world might not reflect your new frequency right away. It might still echo back old patterns, old faces, old emotions, and this is where most people retreat. They say nothing's changing, but the truth is everything is changing. Only now it's starting from the inside out. You see, when you live from the frequency of your desired reality, you're not pretending. You're practicing. You're stabilizing. You're telling the field, "This is who I am now," not with words, but with embodiment. And the field listens. It begins to rearrange. Not instantly, not always dramatically, but steadily, subtly, and with precision. The new timeline starts as a whisper, then a pattern, then a presence that becomes undeniable. But it only stays if you stay. You must stay in the room with your vision, even when your senses try to drag you back to the familiar. You must anchor into the identity that fits the reality you're calling in, not the one you've outgrown. And how do you do that? You wake up and respond as the future self. You pause before acting and ask, how would the version of me who already has this respond? You make decisions not based on fear or lack, but from the frequency of trust, abundance, and alignment. Over time, that version stops being a vision. It becomes memory, not because it's in the past, but because it's integrated. And you'll look around and realize it's not that your reality finally caught up. It's that you aligned so fully, so consistently, that the outside had no choice but to mirror your center. That's when manifestation becomes obsolete. Because there's nothing to attract when everything is simply a reflection of who you've become. And you've become the observer, not just watching reality, but choosing it. Not just hoping for alignment, but being alignment. So live as if it's already true. Not to fake it, but to fold it in. To tune your system so precisely that the field has no option but to answer. Of course, You already are, because that's the secret. You're not becoming something new, you're remembering what's always been real. And when you live from that remembrance, life stops being a pursuit and becomes a mirror, one that finally reflects back the truth you stopped waiting for and started living. You've spent so long trying to attract a life that already exists, not out there but within reach of your attention. You thought you had to earn it, chase it, prove you were ready. But the truth is simpler than that. What you desire isn't hiding. It's waiting for you to stop observing from the frequency of absence and start embodying the presence of truth. This isn't about convincing reality to change. It's about seeing clearly enough that it has no choice. Because what you observe becomes, and what you observe from belief becomes stable, and what you embody long enough becomes you. You are not here to watch life happen. You are here to declare it real by watching it through the eyes of alignment. So hold the gaze, hold the signal, hold the truth of the world you've already chosen, until the world holds it with you. And when that moment comes, when reality bends to the signal you no longer question, you'll know. It was never about attracting, it was always about remembering. You've been the field all along.